Hello, my name is Caden Thompson, and this is going to be my final project for CJ325. Today, I'll be talking about how police body-worn cameras influence use of force and public trust. Introduction to the topic. This project looks at what happens when officers use cameras during encounters with the public. These cameras are used across the United States to improve transparency, accountability, and professionalism. They're also a major part of modern police reform, too, so it's important to understand whether they actually work the way people expect them to. Why this topic matters. This topic matters for several reasons. First, cameras may reduce unnecessary or excessive force because officers know their actions are being recorded. Second, cameras provide clear documentation for investigations and complaint reviews. And third, they influence how the community feels about the police, especially on fairness, safety, and trust. Building trust between officers and communities is essential, and cameras play a major role in that. One key study that I looked at was conducted in 2016. The title was The Effect of Body-Worn Cameras on Use of Force. In this study, they ran a randomized control trial across several police departments to see how body-worn cameras affect other behavior. The results showed something important. Use of force incidents dropped, and citizens' complaints also went down. This study gives us strong evidence that cameras can influence how officers act and help reduce negative encounters. Another source that I used was conducted in 2020. It was called Systematic Review of Body-Worn Camera Research. Instead of just looking at one department, they reviewed more than 70 peer-reviewed studies on body-worn cameras. They found cameras consistently improve transparency and provide stronger evidence for investigations. But the impact on public trust was mixed. Some communities trusted the police more when cameras were used, while others didn't see much difference. A lot of that depended on how well officers follow camera policies, whether departments were consistent, and how transparent they were with the footage. So overall, cameras help, but they work best when departments enforce the clear rules. Qualitative method. For my qualitative method, I chose semi-structured interviews. This method works well for topics involving trust, fairness, and personal police encounters because people can describe things in their own words. Interviews let participants explain what they saw, how they felt, and how the presence of a camera affected the situation. That level of detail is something surveys can't capture. My design approach. My plan is to interview two groups: officers who wear cameras and community members who have been in recorded encounters. My hypothesis is that experiencing or watching body camera encounters increases trust in the police. The independent variable is exposure to body camera encounters, and the dependent variables are trust, fairness, and feelings of safety. For the sampling method I use for positive sampling, this means selecting people on purpose because they have real experience with body camera encounters. This approach provides richer and more meaningful information than choosing random participants. So, my interview question. The first one is, when you think about police using cameras, what comes to mind, and explain. The second was, describe an encounter you described or witnessed where a camera was used. Third is, how did the presence of camera affect your trust during that encounter, and explain. The fourth was, how do cameras influence whether officers choose to use force, and explain. And the fifth and final was, what do you see the biggest benefits or drawbacks of police using cameras? So how will these questions help answer our research question? Questions 1 and 3 measure how cameras shape public trust, revealing whether cameras make people feel safer, more respected, or more confident in police fairness. Questions 2 and 4 provide insight into how cameras affect officer behavior, including whether officers act more cautiously or reduce the use of force when being recorded. Question 5 highlights the overall benefits and drawbacks of cameras, giving a broader understanding of how they affect both trust and use of force across real experiences. Together, these questions give detailed information about both main outcomes in the research question, allowing the study to fully address how cameras impact policing. So, for data collection, I would recruit participants through community partners and police contacts. Interviews would be held in private and comfortable locations. They would be audio recorded, transcribed word for word, and coded for themes such as trust and fairness. And participants participants would receive a $10 gift card for their time as an incentive. And data is going to be stored securely and analyzed for emerging themes. So, some ethical concerns. Ethically, the interviews are completely voluntary. Participants can skip any questions they want or stop the interview at any time. Recordings and transcripts would be encrypted, stripped of identifying information, and stored in a secure, protected location. And this really does meet the low risk IRB standards. So it's pretty ethical. For the quantitative part of my study, I used a quasi experimental study. This compares two police departments, one that uses body cameras and one that doesn't. Departments already have their own policies. I can't randomly assign them, so this approach fits best. So, the quantitative design approach. So, the design works like this. Both groups complete a pre-survey. Only one group adopts the camera policy, then both groups complete a post-survey. The goal is to see whether the department with cameras shows higher trust and fewer concerns about use of force afterwards. So, R is group selection based on existing policies. The O is pre and post survey measurements. And the X is camera policy active in Department A. Hypothesis is that departments using cameras show higher trust and fewer concerns about force. The independent variable is camera policy. The dependent variable is trust, fairness, transparency, and accountability. For the survey sample, I use stratified sampling. This means dividing participants by categories like urban versus rural areas and large versus small departments. This helps produce more accurate and balanced results. So these are going to be my survey questions. So the first one is, how would you rate your overall trust in law enforcement in your community? The second is, do you believe police officers are held accountable when they break the law? Third is, do you think body cameras make police more accountable for their actions? How safe do you feel when interacting with the police? Do you think racial bias influences police decisions? Have you ever personally experienced or witnessed police misconduct? If yes, did you report the incident? Do you believe police training is adequate for handling high stress or diverse situations? Do you think police officers treat all people equally, regardless of race or background? How important do you think community policing is for building trust? Next is, how confident are you that officers would face consequences for using excessive force? Next is, how transparent do you believe your local department is about disciplinary actions? The 13th one is, do you believe police community relations have improved in recent years? Next is, would you support stricter punishment for officers found guilty of misconduct? Number 15, would you feel more confident in police oversight if civilians were included in review boards? 16, overall, how would you describe your confidence in the criminal justice system as a whole? 17, how should police be required to complete de-escalation and bias training? And then we just have our demographic question. So the survey includes questions about trust in law enforcement, feelings of safety, accountability, racial bias, transparency, confidence in the justice system, and the importance of police training. And overall, it'll just give us an idea on how confident people really are in the police, and if they kind of like believe the surveillance or the body cameras will help that. So the survey would be online and completely anonymous. People could take it on their phone, tablet, or computer. Participants could enter a raffle for a $25 gift card, and all responses are going to be stored securely and automatically compiled for analysis. For our quantitative ethical concerns, all survey questions are optional because police related topics can be uncomfortable. No personal identifying information is collected, and everything's encrypted and stored security following low risk IRB guidelines. So, in conclusion, body worn cameras increase transparency and can influence officer behavior. Interviews helps us understand personal experience with cameras, Surveys reveal broader patterns across communities, using both methods, giving us the clearest understanding of how body-worn cameras affect police behavior and public trust. Thank you for listening.